My name is Rowan Pike. I'm 31 years old and I work as a graphic designer in Providence, Rhode Island. I've always lived a straightforward life. No drama, no games. My strongest trait has always been knowing how to listen, but also knowing exactly when to close a chapter with precision. I was in a relationship for almost 2 years with Sloane Kitteridge. She was part of our social circle, connected to art, aesthetics, and this whole idea of emotional fluidity. We had different perspectives on life, but we maintained a stable routine. That is, until the day she sat me down in late January 2024 and said she wanted to just be friends. I didn't argue. I didn't ask why. I just listened. And then I took her at her word. That same day, I collected her keys, changed the locks on my apartment, closed our joint savings account at Citizens Bank, and redirected mail and digital access. I reduced contact to the absolute minimum. She asked for space. I gave it to her with crystal clarity. But what seemed like a request for distance was actually an attempt to maintain emotional control without taking any responsibility. If you enjoy stories of cold-blooded revenge and gripping plot twists, like this video and subscribe to the channel now. There are brand new, unreleased stories here every day, each one more intense than the last. Sloane said she wanted to preserve our friendship. But within days, she was posting photos on Instagram with her ex-boyfriend, Evan March. When mutual friends started commenting, I noticed she wasn't looking for peace. She was looking for validation. The word friendship was just a curtain. It only served to keep access to my life without having to deal with the consequences of the choice she made. Before the breakup, Sloane had already shown ambiguous behavior. She defended emotional freedom but reacted with control whenever she felt I was pulling away from her decisions. She always talked about healthy boundaries, but never applied them to herself. After the separation, I documented everything: messages, calls, social media screenshots, emails. I notified HR at my design firm about any inappropriate contact attempts. I changed passwords, removed old access, and warned close friends about my decision to end any connection with her. Shortly after, I started getting closer to Cass Calder, a friend from our group who had always shown balance and respect. The connection was light, natural, and apparently intolerable for Sloane. That's when things started to shift. Sloane began showing up unannounced. She'd knock on my door saying she forgot things. She created excuses for conversations. She called my workplace claiming she needed to talk about an emotional emergency. She even showed up at Cass's building in Fox Point. And simultaneously, she started spreading stories among friends that I had emotionally abandoned her and reacted disproportionately. I didn't panic. I didn't confront her publicly. I just kept documenting every single interaction, every breach of the boundaries she claimed to respect. With all the material already documented, I contacted my attorney in early March 2024, and, with support from my company's HR department, I filed for a no-contact order. No social media posts. No public shaming, just legal channels. The decision was based on facts: persistent calls, unauthorized visits, public manipulation, everything backed by proof. Sloane tried to flip the script. She told people she was being emotionally persecuted by my absence. But friends who saw what was really happening started distancing themselves. The mask of her modern spiritual discourse began to crack under the weight of simple facts. Over time, Sloane stopped being invited to social gatherings. Her attempt to build a victim narrative collapsed under simple logic. She asked for distance and couldn't handle the real result of her own decision. The no-contact order wasn't something I took lightly. In Rhode Island, you need substantial evidence to get one approved, especially when it's not a traditional restraining order, but a formal cease and desist backed by legal counsel. My attorney, a family law specialist I found through a referral, laid it out clearly. "You have everything you need," he said. "Phone records, witness statements, documented workplace disruption. This isn't revenge. This is protection." And he was right. I wasn't trying to punish Sloane. I was trying to reclaim the boundaries she kept violating under the guise of friendship. The order was served to her by a process server on a Tuesday afternoon in mid-March 2024. I didn't see her reaction. but I heard about it. She called one of our mutual friends, someone who later told me the whole conversation. "He's taking this too far," she said. "I just wanted to talk. I just wanted to make sure he was okay." But the facts told a different story. Between the breakup in late January and the day the order was filed in early March, Sloane had called my office 4 times. She'd shown up at my apartment building 3 times. She'd messaged me on 2 different platforms after I'd blocked her on the first. And she'd appeared at Cass's place twice, once claiming she happened to be in the neighborhood, and once saying she needed to drop something off for a mutual friend. None of it was illegal on its own, but together, it painted a clear picture. And that picture was enough. Cass, to her credit, handled everything with remarkable calm. When Sloane showed up the second time, Cass simply said, "I think you should leave. Rowan and I are spending time together, and that's our choice. I respect you, but I need you to respect our space." Sloane didn't take it well. She posted a vague story on Instagram that night about people who abandon their friends for new relationships, and how quickly people show their true colors. It was subtle enough to avoid direct call-out, but obvious enough that everyone in our circle knew exactly who she was talking about. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because by that point, the people who mattered already knew the truth. One of those people was my manager at the design firm, a woman named Angela Frost who'd been in the industry for over 20 years. When Sloane called the office the first time, Angela took the call herself. Sloane claimed it was urgent, that she needed to reach me about a personal emergency. Angela transferred the call. I answered, heard Sloane's voice, and calmly said, "We're not in contact anymore. If there's a real emergency, call someone else." Then I hung up. The second time Sloane called, Angela didn't transfer it. She told Sloane directly that personal calls weren't appropriate, and that if she continued, it would be considered harassment. The third and fourth times, Angela didn't even take the call. She documented it and forwarded the information to HR. That documentation became part of the file my attorney used for the no-contact order, and Angela's willingness to back me up reinforced something I'd always believed. People respect clarity. They respect boundaries, and they respect people who enforce them without drama. Meanwhile, my life was moving forward. Cass and I weren't rushing into anything. We'd go to coffee shops in College Hill, walk along the East Bay bike path, talk about art and design and the strange social dynamics of Providence's tight-knit creative scene. She never pushed me to talk about Sloane unless I brought it up. And when I did, she listened without judgment. "I don't think she expected you to actually follow through," Cass said one evening over dinner at a small Italian place on Federal Hill. "She thought let's be friends meant she could keep you on standby." "Maybe," I said, "but I don't do standby." Cass smiled. I noticed. It wasn't a grand romance, it wasn't a rebound. It was just 2 people who respected each other, spending time together because they wanted to, not because they needed to prove something. But for Sloane, that was unbearable. She started reaching out to mutual friends, trying to build a narrative. She told one person I'd cut her off without explanation. She told another I was manipulating Cass against her. She even suggested to someone that I'd been emotionally abusive during our relationship, a claim so absurd that the friend came to me directly to ask if it was true. I showed them the messages, the timestamps, the documentation. I didn't editorialize. I didn't add my own interpretation. I just let the facts speak. And one by one, people started seeing through it. Not because I campaigned against her, but because her story didn't hold up under scrutiny. The final straw came about 6 weeks after the no-contact order was served, in late April 2024. Sloane showed up at a group event, a gallery opening in downtown Providence that several of us had been invited to. Technically, she had every right to be there. It was a public event, but the moment she walked in, the energy shifted. People who'd been talking to me suddenly found reasons to step away, not because they were scared of her, but because they didn't want to be part of whatever scene was about to unfold. I saw her across the room. She saw me, and for a moment, I thought she might actually approach. But Cass was standing next to me and one of our friends, Someone who knew the whole situation, positioned himself between us like a human buffer. Sloane stayed for less than 10 minutes. Then she left. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel anything, really. Just relief that the boundary had held. After the gallery incident, I made a decision. I was going to move. Not because I was running away, but because I was ready for a clean start. My lease was coming up for renewal anyway, and I'd been looking at places in Fox Point, a quieter neighborhood closer to the waterfront. The rent was about the same, around $1,500 a month for a one-bedroom, but the energy was different. Calmer, more intentional. I signed the lease in early May 2024. By the end of the month, I was settled in. New address, new space, new routine. I didn't announce it on social media. I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just moved, updated my address with the post office and my bank, and kept going. Cass helped me unpack. We spent a Saturday afternoon setting up my workspace, arranging furniture, hanging prints on the walls. It felt symbolic in a way. Building something new in a space that had no history, no baggage, no connections to the past. This feels right, Cass said, standing in the middle of the living room with her hands on her hips, surveying the space. Like you're actually starting over. I am, I said. That's the whole point. She smiled. Good, you deserve it. I did deserve it. And for the first time in months, I actually felt like I was getting it. Work was going well. I'd taken on a few freelance projects in addition to my full-time role at the firm, including a branding redesign for a local coffee roaster and a website overhaul for a nonprofit in Pawtucket. The extra income was nice, around $1,800 a month on top of my $62,000 annual salary. But more than that, it kept me focused, kept me creating, kept me moving forward. Angela noticed the shift. You seem lighter, she said one afternoon during a team meeting. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. I didn't tell her the specifics, but I think she knew. She'd seen the before, she was seeing the after, and the difference was obvious. Meanwhile, Sloane's narrative was unraveling. One of our mutual friends, a photographer named Derek Hallman, reached out to me in mid-June 2024. We met for coffee at a place on Wickenden Street, and he didn't waste time getting to the point. I need to tell you something, Derek said. Sloane's been saying some things that don't add up, and I wanted to hear your side before I made any judgments. I appreciated that. A lot of people don't bother asking. They just pick a side based on who tells the story first or who tells it loudest. What's she saying? I asked. Derek hesitated, then he said, She's telling people you blindsided her, that you ended things out of nowhere and then turned everyone against her. I pulled out my phone. I showed him the message where Sloane said she wanted to just be friends. I showed him the timestamps of her calls to my office. I showed him the screenshots of her showing up at Cass's building. I didn't editorialize. I just let him read. When he finished, he handed my phone back and shook his head. Yeah, that's not what she's been saying. I figured, I said. Look, I don't want to be in the middle of this, Derek said. But I also don't want to support something that isn't true. So I'm stepping back from both sides. No drama, just distance. That's fair, I said. I respect that. And I did. Derek didn't owe me anything, but the fact that he took the time to ask, to verify, to think critically, that mattered. By midsummer 2024, Sloane had mostly disappeared from our social circle, not because anyone explicitly excluded her, but because her behavior had created its own consequences. People stopped inviting her to things, stopped engaging with her posts, stopped responding to her messages. She'd burned through her credibility, one manipulation at a time. I heard through the grapevine that she'd started seeing Evan March again, her ex, the same guy from the Instagram photos. Part of me wondered if that had been the plan all along, if the "let's be friends" line was just a way to soften the transition, to avoid looking like the bad guy. But honestly, I didn't care anymore. Her choices were her choices. My life had moved on. Cass and I made things official that August 2024. No grand announcement, no relationship status update. We just decided that what we had was worth naming, worth investing in. We started planning a weekend trip to Newport, talking about what it would look like to build something real together. "I'm glad you didn't let her mess this up," Cass said one night as we walked along India Point Park, the Providence River stretching out in front of us. "She tried," I said. "But trying isn't the same as succeeding." Cass laughed. "No, it's not." That summer was one of the best I'd had in years. I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't waiting for the next text, the next call, the next manufactured crisis. I was just living, working, creating, spending time with someone who actually respected boundaries and understood what partnership looked like. And then, in late September 2024, I got a message. Not from Sloane. She was still bound by the no-contact order, but from someone she'd apparently sent as a proxy. A woman I barely knew, someone on the periphery of our social circle, reached out on Instagram. "Hey, Sloane wanted me to pass along a message." The text read, "She says she's sorry for how things went down and hopes you're doing well. She just wanted you to know she's moved on and wishes you the best." I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to say something cutting, to point out the irony of sending an apology through someone else while violating the spirit of a no-contact order. But I didn't, because responding would mean re-engaging, and re-engaging would mean giving her exactly what she wanted: access. So I did what I'd been doing all along. I screenshotted the message, saved it to the file my attorney had started, and then I deleted it. I didn't block the woman who sent it. She was just a messenger. But I didn't respond either. And that was that. The final attempt at contact, neutralized with silence. By the time fall rolled around in 2024, I'd been in my Fox Point apartment for about 5 months. My freelance work had picked up to the point where I was seriously considering going independent full-time. Cass and I had settled into a rhythm that felt sustainable, healthy, built on mutual respect rather than need or control. One evening in late October 2024, we were sitting on my balcony watching the sunset over the city, and Cass asked me a question I hadn't expected. "Do you ever think about her?" she asked. "About Sloane?" I thought about it. Really thought about it. And then I said, "Honestly, no, not anymore." "Good," Cass said, "because she doesn't deserve the space in your head." She was right. Sloane had tried to keep me tethered, to maintain control through guilt, manipulation, and manufactured crises. But every move I made, every boundary I set, every piece of documentation I saved, every time I chose silence over reaction, cut another thread. And now, those threads were gone. She had no access, no leverage, no foothold in my life. The no-contact order was set to expire in March 2025, 1 year from the date it was filed. My attorney asked if I wanted to renew it during our final meeting in February 2025, but I told him no. Not because I trusted Sloane to respect boundaries, she'd proven she wouldn't, but because I didn't need a legal document to protect me anymore. I'd built a life she had no access to. "You sure about this?" he asked. "It's not hard to extend it if you think there's any risk." "I'm sure," I said. "She's got nothing to gain by contacting me now, and if she tries, I'll handle it the same way I handled it before." He nodded. "You've done this the right way, Rowan. A lot of people in your situation would have made it messy. You kept it clean." Clean. That's exactly what it was. No public call-outs, no social media wars, no dramatic confrontations, just structure, evidence, and the refusal to engage with chaos. By March 2025, I'd made the decision to leave my full-time position at the design firm and go fully independent. My freelance income had been consistently outpacing my salary for months, and I had enough clients to make the transition smooth. Angela understood. She'd seen it coming. "You've outgrown this place," she said when I gave my 2 weeks' notice. "And honestly, I'm not surprised. You've always had the discipline to build something on your own." On my last day, she gave me a recommendation letter that I still keep in my files. Not because I need it for work, but because it reminds me that doing things the right way gets noticed. Cass and I spent Easter 2025 with her family in Barrington, a small town just south of Providence. It was low-key, comfortable, the kind of gathering where people actually enjoy each other's company. Her parents ran a small bookstore and didn't ask intrusive questions about my past. Over dinner, her father asked me about my work, and I told him about going independent. He nodded thoughtfully and said, "That takes guts, but it also takes knowing your worth. Good for you." I realized, sitting at that table, that I'd crossed over into something new. Not just a new relationship or a new career path, but a new version of myself. One that didn't tolerate ambiguity, didn't accept manipulation, and didn't compromise on boundaries. In early May 2025, I ran into someone from our old social circle at a coffee shop in Down City. A guy named Marcus Brennan, someone I'd always liked but hadn't kept in close touch with. We talked for a few minutes, caught up on life, and then he said something that stayed with me. "You know, a lot of people respect how you handled that situation with Sloane," Marcus said. "You didn't trash her, you didn't make it a thing. You just moved on. That's rare." "I didn't see the point in making it a thing," I said. "She made her choice. I respected it, that's all." "Yeah, but most people don't actually respect it," Marcus said. "They say they want space, but what they really want is control. You didn't give her that, and I think that's what threw her off." He was right. Sloane had expected me to chase, to argue, to beg for another chance. She'd expected the "let's be friends" line to keep me orbiting her life while she explored other options. And when I didn't play that role, when I actually treated her like a friend, meaning someone I was polite to but no longer invested in, it broke her entire strategy. That was the real revenge. Not hurting her, not exposing her, but refusing to be the person she needed me to be in order for her story to work. By summer 2025, I'd been in my Fox Point apartment for over a year. My business was doing well. I'd landed a solid contract with a marketing agency in Boston. Cass and I had started talking seriously about finding a place together. Life was stable, peaceful, built on my terms. I never heard from Sloane again. Not directly, anyway. I heard through mutual friends that she and Evan had broken up again, that she'd moved to Portland, Maine for a fresh start sometime in early 2025. Someone said she'd posted something vague on social media about toxic people and learning to let go. But I didn't look. I didn't need to. Because here's the thing about closure. You don't get it from the other person. You get it from yourself. And I'd close that chapter the day I changed the locks. Looking back now, I don't regret a single decision I made. Not the documentation, not the no contact order, not the move, not the silence. Every step was deliberate, measured, and designed to protect what mattered most: my peace, my boundaries, and my ability to move forward. Sloane wanted me to be a supporting character in her story, someone who would wait on the sidelines while she figured out what she wanted, someone who would absorb her uncertainty and call it friendship. But I wasn't interested in that role, so I wrote my own story instead. One where actions have consequences, where boundaries are non-negotiable, where respect isn't optional. The greatest revenge isn't destruction, it's indifference. It's building a life so fulfilling, so aligned with your values, that the person who hurt you becomes irrelevant. Not because you're pretending they don't exist, but because they genuinely don't matter anymore. Sloane lost access. I gained peace. She said, "Let's just be friends." I said, "Perfect." And then I treated her exactly that way. She hated it, but that was never my problem to solve. If you enjoyed this story, like this video and leave a comment telling me what you thought. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, please subscribe and hit the notification bell to get alerts for new stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.